All offseason long, Matt Campbell has talked about the response to the trip to Ireland. Well, now the rubber meets the road. How will Iowa State handle South Dakota? I'm giving my predictions today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform. Be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are talking all about the South Dakota game, Iowa State's first game in the United States of America this season. Well, yeah, this season, not this year, but this season. So we're going to talk about, is this a trap game? Is this a game that Iowa State could struggle in? What could potentially happen against South Dakota? Then I'm going to talk about what I think we need to look for in this game. Not necessarily what will happen, but what can we actually draw from this game as far as conclusions about the team. Then finally, we're going to round things out with some final thoughts, but most importantly, my predictions, and I'm going to back that up. Can't wait to dive into all of that more. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, let's jump right on into it. We haven't really talked about South Dakota at all here, and so this is going to be a kind of a scrunched down version, but also it's not like a Big 12 opponent. Like, there was, I think, a lot of good reason to preview Kansas State in the way that we did. I think that was a massive, massive win, but in the same vein, Matt Campbell has talked just as much about, if not more, the return from Ireland. And this is the start of that. Iowa State will face off against South Dakota this weekend, tomorrow, actually. And I'm excited. You know, the return of the helmet car. I believe, if I am not mistaken, they're playing Thunderstruck. That's enough in and of itself to make me want to drive over to Ames, literally just to see that. And if that's what they're going to be doing all season, I'm all for it. Now, that being said, this is still a game that Iowa State has to win, right? Like they have to win these games. So let's dive into South Dakota, because I think a lot of people naturally will assume that Iowa State's not going to struggle, right? We just beat Kansas State. That doesn't mean too much, right? That was in the past. We got to win this one. The answer, wow, gee, many creamy. To answer the question, to get it out of my mouth, is this a trap game? I think if there ever was a trap game, this would be it. I think that's a fair assumption to make. You're obviously coming off of the Dublin game, trip, yada, 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 experience, if you will, coming back, first game in Ames, you're sandwiched between Kansas State and Iowa. First week of class is like, this is a difficult situation for Iowa State to find themselves in. I will say, on a quick note, it seems like they're in an okay spot. Now, obviously, Matt Campbell is going to be optimistic, but he did say in the presser that I was talking about yesterday that everybody made it to class on Monday, which is good news. And I think that there is an element of shocking yourself, you know, kind of right back from the trip, boom, you're right back to reality. First time in classes for these guys. I know that some people will think that's a negative thing. I think that's a positive thing for this team. It just the way that my brain works, I think that that would actually be beneficial. I think that they would kind of have a weird reset in a way of like, oh yeah, this is what we do. So I'm not too worried in that regard, but we can't forget about South Dakota. That's the way that I do see this. Is South Dakota is very good, right? And we know what they were able to accomplish last season. So let's talk about it. Missouri Valley Football Conference champions last season. First time they won that conference. Last time they won a conference was the North Central Conference back in 2005. And last season, you know, FCS, I believe, runner-up. They were 11-3 overall, 7-1 in conference. Bob Nielsen, their head coach, and he did retire. So that's something we'll talk about more, I think, in the third segment. But that is something to consider in this semi-preview we're doing of South Dakota. The team, very good last season. Okay, very good. And kind of the spearhead of that, Aidan Bouman, right? And obviously, we know he was at Iowa State, has since gone to South Dakota, played pretty well. And I will say his stats get better every year. They just do. Goes from, 2022 at 132 attempts. Now in 2024, I suppose last year, 312, excuse me. Dyslexia almost got me. The exact same numbers, just in a different order. 132 up to 312. We've seen more passes from Bouman, and his percentage completion has also gone up in 2022, 60.6%, all the way up to, in 2024, 68.6%. his yards. He's gotten over 2,000 more yards in his time at South Dakota. Obviously didn't have a huge role in 2022, but still 892 yards. And then last season accumulating almost 3,000, 2,958. 19 touchdowns last year, coming off of a 15 touchdown year the year prior in 2023. He had less interceptions last season. He only had 4 on those 19 touchdowns. He had a long of 80. I don't really necessarily know if that's something we need to measure. Was sacked 13 times. His rating went from 135 to 156 to 165. So all of that to say, you know this, I know this. South Dakota has a good quarterback. And Matt Campbell has talked about it as well. This is a good dude. All right. He's going to play ball very tough. And he's not the only one on this team that's kind of a dog. Charles Pierre Jr., also a very good player, running back. Last season had 167 carries for 1,245 yards. Broke a long one of 83. He had 16 touchdowns. And the year prior, big jump, right? From 2023 to 2024, ended up with only 5 touchdowns in 2023 on 472 yards. So really big jump from the running back, Pierre. Now, I bring all of that up to say, this is a game that Iowa State has to pay attention to, and South Dakota is very good. I just don't know if it's not like Kansas State, right? It just isn't. And we'll talk more about that, I feel like, in the next 2 segments, because right now we're kind of talking specifically about South Dakota. But I want to get that in there. It's not Kansas State. It's just not. It is an FCS team. And like I said, a new head coach this season. That's going, is it good? Is it bad? Right? Like it's new. So they don't have the culture that they had last season. They don't have the same leadership that they had last season. That doesn't mean that they have worse leadership or worse culture. It just means it's different, something to pay attention to. Could be something that skyrockets the program, right? Like that's very possible. And so as far as the makings of a trap game, this is a game Iowa State absolutely has to pay attention to. Like, you can't let this one slip through the cracks. And I almost wanted to talk, well, I didn't really want to. It's why I'm not. I almost talked about, like, is this a game Iowa State can lose? No, absolutely not. That's the end of this discussion. We don't need to talk about that for 10 minutes. Like, don't lose this game. First game at home. There's a lot on the line here as far as what Iowa State has done in the last few years, what Rocco Becht has done, Matt Campbell has done. For those of you who are interested, I will say Iowa State hasn't played South Dakota since 1959. Long time. And another little fun fact for you here, that Iowa State is 7-0 in games played in Ames, but they have not met in Jack Trice Stadium. So that's kind of an interesting one as well. A little fun fact for you there at the end of this one. Really, to round this out, South Dakota, good team. We saw it last year. They've got some returning pieces. Is it a trap game? Potentially. It's a game you have to pay attention to, is how I'm going to answer that question. Your interpretation of trap game is kind of going to vary person to person. I think it's just a game that if you were to sleep on it, you could get caught, which to me is like a trap game a little bit, but I'm just going to phrase it in the way of, you have to win this. Like, you have to go out, play ball, show up, and get it done. And we'll talk here in a second about what I'm going to watch for in this one, which I think is very important. I think that there are some big takeaways we can pull from this game. But the first thing we got to do is go out there and play ball. Run out to Thunderstruck, watch the helmet car drive around a little bit, and put up 1,000 points on South Dakota. I think they can do it, but that's not my official prediction. So stick around for the third segment for that, obviously. Now, like I said, let's talk a little bit about what I expect to see from this game. What can we learn from this South Dakota team, from Iowa State against the South Dakota team? It's coming up right here after this. College football is back, baby, and back in Ames. And I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it, genuinely. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices, and there are no hidden fees. There are no prices jumping at checkout. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple taps. I saw some amazing deals for this season. I'm talking about college football games at ridiculously low prices. So take the guesswork out of buying college tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go. Download Game Time today. So we just talked a little bit about, is this a trap game or not? And I think the best way to answer that is just, it's a game you got to win, right? You got to show up, you got to play ball. In the act of playing ball, I think we can pull some conclusions from this game for Iowa State. I think there are some things we have to watch for, and there are some things that we can learn from this game this weekend here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. These early season games, obviously with the exception of Kansas State, a lot of times there's not a ton you can pull from them because the team's getting the rust knocked off. You're still learning who's where, when, how, why, big 5 W's, right? We're still not really sure of that stuff. Like that's what these games kind of are for. So it's hard to draw conclusions from those games. I think this year it's a little bit different for Iowa State. Now, we don't really have those things answered, which is like kind of what I was just saying, but you now have an idea of Iowa State against a Big 12 opponent, right? You now have an idea of what they can do. So we can kind of base their performance in some ways off of that Kansas State game. There are a few key things that I'm going to be looking for in this one. All right. The first one is the offense. Was that first half rust? Was that second half true? Was that first half weather? We'll talk about that. I do wonder if the running game can stay as dominant. Can the offensive line, hold up? They played really well in the second half, but that first half was sloppy. It was not ideal. The depth, I think, of this team will be shown in this game. I think that there was an opportunity for Iowa State to be playing, third, fourth stringers here, which generally I wouldn't be too gung-ho on. Like, it's just like, okay, we've got our third stringers out there, fourth stringers out there. I think we're going to see a lot of third and fourth stringers out this season on the field, like genuinely, like linebackers and wide receivers. I think that this is going to be a good evaluation of those players because we might have to tap into them during the year. We're not going to get a ton as far as, like, this is going to be a pretty vanilla game plan for Iowa State, I would imagine. You're not going to want to give away too much early, especially as far as like film goes for other Big 12 teams. So I'm not going to get too crazy there. But I do wonder what are the coaching decisions that are going to be made. How do the players and the coaches react to pressure situations, right? So those are all kind of things that I'm going to be looking for. Obviously, I'll be watching for more than just that. How are Sowell and Townsend utilized? Are they utilized? How does the defensive line play, react? What happens in the secondary? Basically, I'm going to be watching like every aspect of this team, but I think that the biggest one for me is the offense, because right away, Iowa State has to go. That's how this works. You have to win before you can let off the gas, which, like, and I say win, I don't say get a big lead. Like, you got to win before you let off the gas when the clock hits 0. And so how do you win? You score a bunch of points. Iowa State isn't starting this game up by 20. Iowa State starts this game with the same number of points as South Dakota, and they have to go score, and they have to score early, because if they wait to score all their points at the end, there's a possibility that they're down, right? Like, that's just common knowledge. So the angle that I'm going with here, the thing I want to look at is early in the game, how does Iowa State offense look? Because against Kansas State, it didn't look very good. Now, there are a couple different reasons why that could be. Could be because of the weather. Could be because it's the first game of the season. Could be because it's in Dublin. Could be because of the nerves. Could be because of the everyone's way too juiced up. Like, I don't know what it is. But the fact of the matter is, Iowa State didn't really play that well that first quarter and a half, first half, right? The second half was where they played good offensive football. So what's going to happen early in this game? Is this going to be a team that struggles in the first half all season long? We really don't want that. I'm not going to lie to you. That is not where I want this team to be. I want this team to be able to get out early and put up a lead and play from in front. Like, and not so much literally just from the angle or the avenue of this team is better from out in front. I think that they're good in all aspects, but I just would rather them not have to fight back from behind. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like that's pretty obvious. And when you're in front, you can make decisions. You're not forced to play a certain way. That's where you want to be. You want to be winning. So early in this one, how does the Iowa State offense look? Because in the third or fourth quarter, there's a potential, now it's not a given, there is a potential that Iowa State is up by 30 points. I'm not really too worried about the offense at that point. I'm just not. We're going to see some very basic plays. We're going to see some very basic formations. We're going to see a lot of just kind of conservative play calls. We're not going to be going for it on 4th and 2. More than likely, we're probably going to see a lot of, like I said, depth. And so those guys, I do think they will make an impact this season, but not probably at the same level as the starters. I'm not as worried at the end of the game. I want to see the beginning. I want to see and if it's close to the end, obviously, then I care, but I don't know if it will be. I'm looking immediately at the very beginning of this one. How does Iowa State offense look out there? In that offense, I think, you can boil it down to, obviously, Rocco, right? Does he throw for better than 50%? How are the receivers doing? Are they dropping balls? Are they creating separation? What's going on there? But I think the run game is a game that Iowa State can win a lot this season. So I would like to see, how does the offensive line look? How does Carson Hansen look? How does Abu Sama look, right? Where are we at running the ball? Because I think Iowa State can win a lot of games that way this season. And against Kansas State, it was a weird game. In the last quarter, Iowa State looked really good. But does that carry over, right? Or was that just a weird thing with Kansas State? Was that a depth issue for them? Were they tired? I mean, we've heard that they were pretty tired. So I just want to see it carry over against a different team. Not necessarily the best team Iowa State's going to face this season. Maybe they would be. Who knows? We haven't played them yet, but probably not. And so it's going to be hard to make real, true conclusions. I guess we'll have to find out really what happens. It's going to be kind of based on the events that take place. The other one, the defense, the secondary. I think that's the biggest thing I'm looking at here, probably is the secondary. I'm kind of all over the place here, but I do think the secondary is very important. A couple huge shots given up against Kansas State. Can't be having that. Just plain and simple. We can't be having that. I understand why, and I get, like, it's early in the season. You're still learning, and we won that game, so I can't be too upset about it. But that was something that piqued my interest. How is Iowa State going to do against South Dakota? Because it's not like South Dakota is just wheeling out a bunch of guys who are freshmen in high school, right? And Iowa State's got the crazy physical advantage. These are still guys that are very good at the game of football and relatively the same age, like within 4 years. So they're pretty much on the same physical level to an extent. To an extent, I said, don't get too crazy there, because there is levels to it. But you never know, man. You never know what these teams are going to wheel out there. And I think that Iowa State, we're going to see. If you get burned against South Dakota and you got burned against Kansas State, immediately that's a concern for me. If Iowa State holds them to, and like I said, Bouman's very good quarterback. So if Bouman throws for 285 yards, I'm going to be concerned about this secondary. So that's something else, another thing that I am looking for. I guess another thing that you can kind of mention is, where is Iowa State at post Dublin? I'm not really watching for that, to be honest. It's on my list here, but it's not a key point, just because if they win this game, you're now in full-blown, you're back in the States. Like, you're no longer too worried about jet lag and recovery and all of that. There's going to be an element of some carryover, but not a ton. Like, after this game, I think we're pretty much back to normal. And I understand why they talked about it the way they did all offseason. But the way I see it, I think that this game, I think you're going to get through this one, and now we're back in regular season mode as far as like being in the States. So don't worry too much about that, in my opinion. If it's out there, it's fine. Let it be. Like, it's really not that big. If that's what I'm saying, I guess, is if it happens, it's fine. We'll move on. We'll probably win. That's what I'm going to say. That's my prediction. Shocker, I know. But I'm not going to put too much weight into if we look really sluggish and tired. Like, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay on the season. Now, I said I do think Iowa State's going to win, and I stand by that. But by how much and why? Stick around to find out here right after this. Hey, Cyclone fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it is totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers do vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. All right, we got to get to the prediction for the South Dakota game. This is a big one, in my opinion. I think Iowa State has to get this win, or else things could really derail. But first, I have a very important request for you guys. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make our favorite podcast your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, even if it's me. I won't take it too seriously. And answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered into for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Thank you for helping me out specifically. 1,000 subscribers. It's all thanks to you guys. You guys are the best. All right, Iowa State against South Dakota. My prediction, Iowa State wins this one. No brainer, right? That's just my pick. There are some things working against them. I think there are a lot of things working for them. As far as, I'll give you the score prediction right here, right off the bat. I am going to go 38-16. I had to reference my sticky note here because I wrote this down before I started, recording, obviously. I haven't mentioned it yet. I do think it's going to be 38-16. I think it's probably going to be a game where Iowa State gets out relatively early, kind of lets off the gas a little bit. Still going to be scoring. I think South Dakota probably scores late in this one. The way I have it at 16, I think it'll be field goal, touchdown is my guess. Could also go field goal, touchdown, field goal. But I don't see the touchdown coming early. I think Iowa State defense holds up quite well. Another thing I didn't mention in that segment we just got done with, as far as things I'm looking for, and I'm going to point out here because 38, the final score. I think Iowa State is going to give or make it a point maybe to get Kyle Conradi to kick again, going 50% over in Dublin. I think that there's going to be an element of, all right, if it's 3rd and 8, maybe we don't necessarily need to go for the first down here, especially if they're up, 20 points. Let's go ahead, just play like we normally would on like a 2nd and 8, get some of it back. If we don't get it, it's not the end of the world. Let's let Kyle kick. If we do get it, great. We'll just keep driving. I think we might see that. I think we'll see an opportunity for Kyle Conradi to kick. Whether it's on purpose or not, obviously, is going to be really hard to tell. Ooh, almost dropped that. I just think that they will make a point to get him to kick the ball at some point in this one, just to boost his confidence. Now, to back up my prediction, 38-16. I think Iowa State has a very strong offense, and I think that I truly think that what we saw in the second half against Kansas State is what they're capable of. I think that this team is very much going to be a dominant run team. I think they're going to be able to hand teams a bit of an issue as far as when Iowa State runs it, the other team's got to suit up, right? You got to show up. Whoever it is, South Dakota, Arizona State, maybe Texas in the playoffs. Who knows? I think Iowa State's going to be a problem in that area. I also think that Rocco looked really good in a lot of throws in Dublin. His stat line was not super impressive. It wasn't. I'm not going to lie to you guys. However, I thought he played very well. Like overall, I would probably give him an A-, maybe a B+ for that throw. How was that not intercepted? I think for the most part, he made a lot of really smart throws, really solid throws, as far as like putting the ball where it needed to be. His presence in the pocket was really good. His ability to run the ball, obviously, something we haven't really talked about this whole week, but something that I thought he did really, really well. I think that he can carry that over against South Dakota, and we're going to see solid play from him there. So 38 points. I think that this offense is very capable of doing that. The only worry I really have is, do they let off the gas too early, or do we score like 50 points? And I don't think that will happen. I think that this will be a relatively conservative score. I think that South Dakota, like I said, probably not going to score with Iowa State starters out on the field. I think this defense is really solid, really good. We're going to see some disruption up front. I think the linebackers are going to be flying around. I think the secondary is better than those two deep bombs against Kansas State. So maybe they hold them to a field goal in the first half. Maybe they hold them to the field goal and the touchdown in the first half if something crazy happens. I don't know for sure. I think a lot of those points do come on the back end of this game, of the 16 that I predicted. That's just the way that I see it going. However, obviously, there is the chance that South Dakota keeps this really close. We've seen Iowa State kind of have to deal with that in early season games in the past. There's a chance that this game is kind of in Iowa State's control the entire time, but South Dakota's kind of right on the tails and forces Iowa State to play at a high level for a lot of this game. There's also the chance that Iowa State makes a few bad mistakes early, maybe an interception, maybe a fumble, maybe a punt, muff or whatever, and all of a sudden South Dakota finds themselves up 10. Maybe they get a field goal early, some sort of turnover, short field position, you're able to sneak into the end zone. Now, how does Iowa State respond down 10? I'm not saying that this is going to happen, this 38-16 prediction. There are other ways that this could play out. I just think that this is the most likely. I really think that Iowa State's offense is the real deal. I really think that Iowa State's defense has the potential to be kind of like game controlling level defense. I think that there is a very, very real chance that Iowa State's defense stacks up really well against the other teams in the Big 12. And I guess we'll see if that Kansas State game was a real good indicator, or if Kansas State struggled in a lot of different ways and Iowa State was able to just do enough to get by. That's entirely possible as well. We have a sample size of 1 for Iowa State right now, which is why I'm mostly looking for things in this game. I think, if Iowa State loses this game, it's not like the season's over. And I hate to say that, because what are we doing? But I think if Iowa State loses this game, it's not like we need to scrap the entire season. I'm going to be trying to learn as much from this one as I can. Now, I do think that Iowa State needs to win this game. I said earlier, is this a game that they can lose? No, let's not lose this game. It's a weird spot for momentum. It's a weird spot for, big win. Then you're going into Iowa, which is, I think, a huge game for Iowa State. This loss would look really not great in the eyes of a committee if Iowa State's pushing for a college football playoff spot. If I could pick any game on the schedule, this would not be the one to lose, right? Like this, you don't want to lose these games, right? You just don't. I think Kansas State maybe was one of those that you could swallow losing because of all of the circumstances around it. You can make a bunch of reasons why they lost that game. This game, you're back in Ames. The helmet car's back. New walkout song, run out song. You got to win this one. You have to win this one. I cannot wait for Iowa State football to be back in Ames, though. Like, the thought of Jack Trice bumping around has me psyched. I mean, I'm taking my shoes off and putting them over my head in my living room. I swear to you, I love the fact that football is back at Jack Trice. I think Iowa State can get it done. I think that they're very much in the position to make some really solid plays. Question is, will they? How will they respond to Dublin? How will they handle South Dakota, a team that's very good still? The way that I've been talking about them, even I'm hearing it myself, like, okay, Iowa State's going to walk away with this win, no problem. That's not what I'm saying. South Dakota, very good. Why say lot word when less word do trick? South Dakota, good. Like, period. That's it. We got to keep our head on the swivel here. Can't catch this L. That being said, I do think Iowa State walks away. My final prediction, 38-16 as the victor. Got a little crazy with the numbers. Didn't stick to just touchdowns and field goals with this one. Thank you guys for listening to this point in the episode. Shout out to every single one of you. Be sure to hit the subscribe button down below so we can prove that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Let's enjoy this first game for Iowa State in the States, the United States of America. That being said, until next time, Cyclone fans.